Erosion is the process by which material is moved from one place on the planet to another through the action of wind and water. So how do we go from this to this? The surface of our planet is in a constant battle between the forces that build mountains and those that level them. Earth is dynamic and ever-changing as heat from the formation of the planet itself drives the motion of vast tectonic plates across its surface. This movement fuels the creation of continents and builds vast mountain ranges. But even as those mountains and continents rise, unrelenting erosion works to tear it all down. One of the most striking erosion features I've ever seen in Ontario is ongoing now near the town of Port Burwell. A vast canyon is opening up in the northern edge of the Lake Erie shoreline, and I want to know why. And that means getting to the bottom of things. This incredible feature is actually known as an erosion gully. Now, that does not give you a good sense of the grandeur of this feature. But one of the things that George and I want to find out today is whether the erosion has halted or whether it's going to continue. And there's only one way to do that, and that's to get a lot closer. There are two main types of erosion: mechanical and chemical. Chemical is the literal dissolving of rock by acid, a more common occurrence than you might think, especially in areas of Ontario with lots of limestone, like the Niagara Escarpment. Ontario is well known for its karst landscapes along the Niagara Peninsula. These features have been created by the action of rain on the limestone that makes up the escarpment, and it's a great example of chemical erosion. Carbon dioxide dissolves in rainwater as the rain drops through the atmosphere and makes it ever so slightly acidic. This carbonic acid reacts with the calcium carbonate that makes up limestone and quite literally dissolves it away. It's not a fast process, but it's relentless. Given enough time, and these karst landscapes are created. Most dramatically, as the water seeps beneath the ground, caves can be created. While chemical weathering can create interesting and unique rock formations, mechanical erosion, which is the removal of materials like rock or soil by wind and water, is far more important to us humans as it has a massive impact on our activities. This massive ravine was once a farmer's field, and it's a great example of what happens when you strip away the protective vegetation, that protective cover. Once that cover is gone, the water can get down through the topsoil into the sand and give you this tremendous amount of erosion, which has created this gully or ravine. Every year, 75 billion tons of topsoil is lost to erosion in processes like this around the world. Physical erosion begins with the breaking down of rock by the freeze, thaw, expansion, contraction process, chemical weathering, and even biological breakdown by roots and lichens. As the rock breaks into smaller pieces, it can then be transported by wind, water, or ice from one place to another. If the material is already broken down, like sandy deposits, the physical erosion process can proceed very rapidly. This formation near Port Burwell is unusual because it's digging into the landscape perpendicular to the shoreline, while most erosion on the edges of the lake is parallel to the shore. Physical erosion by water starts with the simple act of a single drop of water falling on the ground that makes a small crater. This is stage one. The splash can make material fly as much as 30 centimeters away as long as it's light and small. Think sand grains. From there, things can rapidly take off. When you get enough water, you get what this is right here. This is known as a rill. A few centimeters of water by a few centimeters wide. That's the beginning stage of what we see here. This is a gully, and gullies can be many tens or even hundreds of meters wide and deep. Vegetative cover can reduce erosion by creating a solid mass of roots and soil particles and by reducing the kinetic impact of raindrops when they strike the surface. Unfortunately, tilling has an effect of creating finer particles, which can be more easily transported by water.
Degradation of agricultural lands is one of our big environmental problems, right behind climate change, and erosion is a major part of that degradation. Human activities and the way we practice farming, that has led to an erosion rate 13 to 40 times what the natural rate actually is.
If the erosion gets too bad, badlands are created, and in some cases, those lands are lost to anything productive like farming or forestry. Down at the bottom of the gully, George and I end up in the muck, and that means the erosion is ongoing. There's no easy way to tell how big this feature will ultimately end up as. And as the atmosphere warms, this may increase the rate at which the fields end up in the lake. Climate change will have a massive effect on soil erosion as the numbers of high-volume, high-intensity storm events increase. That means that erosion is only going to get worse in the future. How we deal with it is a question that needs an answer before we lose more lands to wind and water.